All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here. Let's see if we get everything turned on, make it all fancy. There you go. All right, so let's see. We should be up and running also in the Moxie room and good to go over here on Facebook, YouTube, I think Twitter also. So let's make sure we're all good there. All right, let's kind of close this thing up. And then I do actually have a couple interesting things to show you all. But remember, if you're new to me and want to find a little more information, come over to profitpilot.com. And then let me get this thing up and running. And I actually had a couple good calls this morning. They were very quick actually, because I was looking at some things yesterday into today and thinking, it seems to me like we still got just a little bit more room, a little bit more wiggle room for the market to come down. And I made exactly that post yesterday. And so that's what I'm going to do is kind of, let's see if I should be able to, yeah, there we go. We can do this. This will be great. So anybody out there who is not in the Moxie room and you guys have been maybe kind of curious to see what it's like and what I do in there and show people, I think this is a pretty good opportunity because, man, there were a lot of good stuff in through here. So let me kind of walk through this. I know this is probably going to be redundant for those of you who are in the Moxie room, but, this is outward facing. So I want to make sure everyone kind of sees kind of what we're up to. Let me get this cursor and yeah. So if we look at this, today is the 6th. So today is September 6th, and so that means yesterday was September 5th. And what I left off with, for those in the Moxie room, these are the alerts from the actual Moxie trading room. And part of the thing I said, hey, I still want to wait and see what tomorrow looks like, meaning today. And I said that the SPY is still under the 15-minute 50. And I referenced Tesla because I had a live session with everybody yesterday, and we were kind of looking at some of the EV names. And I said, Tesla looks good, but I think that there's still a little bit more that I'd like to see. And I'm going to be explaining all this too. So if anybody who's on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, I'll talk about this and then I can show you some stuff. And I said, I think Tesla, had a nice move, but I want to see if it can pull back or flag into the 15-minute 50, because, that's kind of the first move. And then we look for support and all that kind of stuff. And so I said, let's just wait a little bit. And then what I did is I made this post. In fact, I can actually open this so you can actually see what I posted right here. And so this is what I sent. And what you can see is right here on the right side, you see that yellow circle? That was the thing that I was talking about yesterday with the Moxie subscribers. I said, look, there is an issue that price is still up over the 15-minute 50, and we should see if price is going to actually come down and test and support that. And you can see that basically first thing this morning, that's exactly what price did. It was drop down and actually head towards the 15-minute 50. Now, we can go check this live and see what it looks like, but that's at least what it was first thing this morning. That's a 15-minute bar. You can see there's only one. And so that means that was right away. Okay, so then that was that one. And in fact, yeah, let's go take a look at what Tesla looks like right now. And yeah, went down below the 15-minute 50. Now we're going to have to wait and see where this thing wants to go. We don't really have a confirmed direction of how this might look and how this might turn out. It's still kind of choppy. But that was something I was wanting to see, and we got it. And that means I'm still going to wait a little bit. And then the next thing is, if we kind of come down to, so this morning, looking at a few things, and I said right in through here, basically, most other names aren't really doing anything today. And I said, then Apple and the NASDAQ look like they still want to pull back. And so I said, let me show you an example of Apple in the next post. And that was this morning before the market opened. I'm on the West Coast. So the market opens at 6:30 a.m. here. And I did this example. I said, and I know they're completely different stocks, but TPX and Apple, and I went through this whole thing. I'll show you in a second. Basically, this is what I thought a good similarity, good example looked like, and we can open that up here. And so let me actually maybe use green. Maybe that'll help work out well. You can see TPX was on the left here, daily, hourly. And I was kind of showing this. I said, hey, look, this daily chart price was up here. So moving away from the moving average. And on the hourly chart, it's pretty extended. There's a big gap. And what happened was that TPX then dropped like that. And then I showed the example of Apple. And I said, basically, Apple on the daily and hourly chart look exactly the same as TPX. I said, be a little bit careful. I would imagine that Apple should do what TPX did. Again, they're completely different stocks. They have nothing to do with each other. This is more just about patterns and formations and recognition of these things and saying that there is some relative consistency about how these things work in the market. And so this morning I was able to show that and say I think that this is how Apple's going to move, and I think the Nasdaq is going to move in a similar way. Well, let's take a look over here at Apple. And what do we got? It did exactly. It did exactly what TPX did. So you can see here, it dropped down, went all the way to the 21. And you can see here, it filled the gap here. And now it's down here. And it did it when it broke right there off of the 15-minute 50. So that was great timing. Now, but it happened immediately this morning. So if you had a trade on or something, you had to be pretty quick about it if you had a day trade to the downside. Otherwise, if you're on a long trade, a long swing trade, and you see this kind of situation, I was able to then point out and use an education moment to say, hey, traders, Moxie traders, if you are trading Apple and you're long, these are the things you need to look for so that you don't get surprised by something like this. And I was able to really point that out very succinctly this morning, just before everything got going. All right, so that was Apple. Let me then show you one other thing as we kind of go down through here. These are the alerts that I give out to the Moxie subscribers, and I say, hey, these are the times and moments that I'm going to be on camera and whatnot. So then we started talking about Tesla. I said, hey, boy, this thing sure worked out. There you go. So this is the other thing. I get a lot of questions from new subscribers or people who are Facebook and YouTube, whatever, and they say, how many trades do you give out? And you give out trades, do you follow up on them? Of course I follow up on them. I'm not just going to throw something out and then just walk away from it. And I do the same thing about just things that I show. I talked about Tesla yesterday. Well, what do? Well, today I then follow through with that and I say, hey, look, this is something we discussed and this is what it's doing. In fact, it's doing what we thought it was going to do. And, I basically hold your hand and guide you through the entire process about how these things work. And then I was also saying that, I figured that the SPY and over the last couple of days, I said, look, we can't go long the market because I'm still thinking that the SPY is going to pull back, the SPY and the NASDAQ. And you can see here, this morning, 15 minutes into this morning bell, and I said, there you go, the SPY filled the gap to the hourly 50 and the daily 8, and this is exactly the thing that we've been discussing. And I said, now that this is happening, we need to be a little bit careful because this could mean larger ramifications for the future. We're just gonna have to give it a little bit of time. Like, I don't really want to be shorting anything right now, but we just need to be aware that it might still have some troubles kind of getting up and out of this. September is still a seasonally weak month. The market doesn't have to go down, but it could go sideways. So you can see here, this is the reason why we didn't go long, say, the market, because it was still showing me and flashing that these things were still overbought. You can see a big gap here, same thing here, gap here. And if you look at the 15-minute time frame, you could see price was still underneath the 15-minute 50 there, and look at the Moxie indicator, it's below 0. And so this is what even yesterday I left off. Like, you guys saw that yesterday post in the Moxie room. I said, still could have a little bit more downside. Still might need to shake a little bit out. I'll show you what that one looked like yesterday. Yeah, there you go, right here. Things are looking warm. Kind of seeing some stuff out there, but I want to see if the markets do a last little shakeout. Now, I don't know if this is the last, but this is what I was talking about another little shakeout. There you go. So there you go. There's that drop and that pullback and something that we were expecting. Now we can take a look at IWM. We talked about this one to the Moxie subscribers also, yeah, because it was funny that the IWM and also XLF were up and up significantly, strongly. Looked great last week compared to the SPY, the Dow, and the NASDAQ. They were all kind of sideways to down. And I was telling the subscribers and even people in the options room, so the simpler options room, and I said, I just don't know if I would trust this. I don't think so, because my patterns, the elf shoe, the 5250, all these patterns are still kind of in play, saying this is around the peak, and this would be not a great place to go long. It just would not be the correct risk to reward ratio on something like this. And once again, yeah, that was a perfect situation. And then on Tuesday, since we had a 3-day weekend, so Tuesday, we had the market just drop just instantly drop like that for the IWM. And you would have had to be either Johnny on the spot if you wanted to short it, or maybe your stops would have taken you out if you were long. But if you paid attention to the Moxie indicator and the way that I trade and teach you guys, then you would have known that it was a very, very risky place to be long up and through here. So I just thought you guys out there in the Twitter universe and all that might actually appreciate seeing what we talk about, the kind of posts that I make, and get a firsthand glimpse of what it's like to be inside of the Moxie room. All right, let me kind of bring this back over, get this opened up. Let me close that. Nasir, let's see. Nasir, I'll also get back to some of your comments. I saw that you were talking a little bit more. I had to get my wife out the door. I don't know how she needs like a military backpack or something, because not only does she have her 32-ounce of coffee and protein shake chocolate thing, she has a giant water bottle, a smaller water bottle, her lunch sack, because she spends all day at schoolwork. She's a school nurse, and then her work bag, which is, I don't know, filled with a laptop and paperwork and all sorts of other stuff, and then her purse. And I just don't know how. I mean, talk about a rucksack. She could probably outperform me on any obstacle course just because of her morning routine, getting out the door with all that stuff. So I'm her pack mule, and I help carry those things out, get it in the car, and then she's able to get out there. So. All right, Nasir, Apple seems to be basing it on the hourly 200, also just like TPX. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if the market resolves to the upside. I'd like to think that. I would like to lean to the upside. As I said, I'm not bearish on anything, but I do think that the market needs some time to kind of shake itself out. Remember, August, September are seasonally weak. I think we got most of the weakness out in August, but September, I think, is probably going to, to use a burning reference, as everybody's been talking about in the news right now, it's probably going to be spinning its wheels in the mud. I think that's kind of what we're going to be getting for September. So do look out for strong stocks in September that can carry, because a neutral market can allow stocks to go up. But kind of for the most part, I'm wondering if we're just going to see at least the indices go sideways, catch their breath, that kind of stuff. Because even Apple could really use an opportunity to catch its breath. It had a really, really good move up for several months, and it pulled away from its major moving averages. And while it did have a wick come down here and tap the monthly 10, it could probably still use another bit of a rest. And same thing here on the weekly chart. It pulled back, it bounced, and what if it just kind of goes sideways for a little bit? We've seen that before. You can see it where it pulled back to the weekly 21, bounced, and still kind of went it sideways for a little bit. And same thing here, kind of went sideways. This was a nice move right there, but it could just chill out for a little bit. And I think we can also see the same thing with, let's see, the semis. In through here, it may not necessarily go down big like that, but you could see here, even though the semis went sideways for several weeks, and there's a possibility that the semis could go sideways for several weeks. So that was one that I was seeing. The NASDAQ, let's go over there real quick, because here's the other thing I pointed out. I even said it this morning to the Moxie traders. I said the NASDAQ was looking basically the same thing as Apple. And of course, Apple, the NASDAQ, and the SPY, they're the largest things. They're going to be trading together. And you could see here that Apple, or the NASDAQ, because again, Apple, had that giant gap between price and the moving averages, and it was likely to pull back. And so that's what I said in through there. And then on the hourly chart, you could also see how price was very far from the moving average on the hourly chart. And then, if you guys noticed, not only was this a double top right there on the hourly chart, it's an inverse elf shoe. So those of you in the Moxie room, check this out: leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot. There's your inverse elf toe. I mean, just absolutely picture perfect. Picture perfect. And then I'll show you this on the 15-minute time frame. Let's get that, try it again. There you go. And you can see here there was an inverse trampoline move, price over the 50, but the Moxie indicator below 0. That's an inverse trampoline move, and that one also worked out pretty perfectly. So now, while I'm just showing you guys, if you guys want to see what a regular elf shoe looks like, check this out right here. And what regular divergence, I mean, there you go. It doesn't look like a shoe. Looks like the boot of Italy. Leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot, boom, there's your off toe. And you can see double bottom, positive divergence, trampoline move right there on the 15-minute time frame as well. All right. Let's see. The FX yield trend doesn't suggest a boring equity market. Okay, well, let's see. Lukewarm. Um, where would you go to kind of point toward that? Because some of these things I don't always look at. And as far as the yield curve, right, that has been the biggest thing that so many people have been talking about is the yield curve. I mean, it's what the worst since the 1980s or something like that. We are drastically inverted. But remember, I think it comes down to timing, and that's going to be the thing that most people are talking about right now. Is because the yield curve is inverted, everyone keeps thinking, oh, the recession is going to happen tomorrow, and the market crash is going to happen tomorrow. But a lot of times, it's I guess you got to say that it takes time, and the powers that be might actually have the ability to kind of hold this off a little bit. We have the presidential election coming up, and those who kind of pull the levers, maybe they don't want the market crashing during a presidential cycle for whatever reason. And yeah, look on too many charts. I get you. And and so there could be a thing about, well, timing. So this yield curve is uninverted or inverted. Well, it's not just about when it becomes uninverted. It's usually about when the yield curve actually starts to cross back over zero. And that could take some time. What if it even took a year and a half or 2 years until that finally happened, and then we get the recession? So the idea of a recession, it could be kind of like a clock whose a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, those who might be saying, "Oh, recession is going to come," like, sure, they will be eventually right because recessions do happen fairly frequently, and it's a matter of when, though. So what if people are calling for all the recession stuff, like basically this quarter, next quarter, whatever? But what if it doesn't happen for 2 years? I don't know. Just something to think about. So watch the charts and see how that works out for us. Oh, the Loco no Joko, cool. Um, let's see, pivot point in the market, man. Okay, looking for it. Yeah, thanks. All right, and tops have been good to see you guys. All right, yeah, TNX has been moving up. That's kind of where I left off here. It got a little overbought last week, but then came down here and tested the daily 50. Now, the Moxie indicator has kind of generally been trending down, so I want to see if that's going to do much. I don't comment too much on the TNX, mostly because it's such a macro thing and has so much to do with the Fed and the economy and all that kind of stuff that it's not going to move mostly like a typical stock, but there are things I can comment about it. And then if we look at the dollar has been moving up, and there are a few things that have confirmed as far as changes. And one of those I want to point out is you have this downtrending trend line that price has not only broken over, it has actually tested support right there. And this is something I mentioned to the Moxie traders, I think about last week. And it's like, well, if it's going to go up, here's a reason it could go up. I'd love to see it go down because that'll be good for the market, but it's going up, and that is what's helping to put pressure on the market. The other thing is, if we look at the monthly chart, what do we have? Well, we are no longer under the monthly 10. We are over the monthly 10. And that the monthly 10 is a pretty strong line in the sand for me, whether it's the regular indices or the dollar or anything. If you are over or under the monthly 10, I think that's a big deal as far as the trend change. And you know, it's not great, but the dollar is now over the monthly 10, and that is something we really do need to be aware of. If you look at the estimates, you can see here, and I think Facebook and all these other names did the same thing. Here's under the monthly 10, here's over the monthly 10, and then here's using the monthly 10 for support. Necessarily, let me see. I guess you've got probably a good setup, huh? Let me get, where is that? Okay, down to 2 minute, and look at the Dixie, 10 Eastern, which would be what? I mean, are we talking about at the open? Oh, yeah, that big move. Moxie was kind of on it. I guess you could say price down, Moxie indicator up, and then boom, there was the big move, and I got that. So, was there news? What was this thing? I know that there was what ISM manufacturing and some PSE came out. Thank you, Lukewarm. Yep, August ISM came out. Let me look over here and see if there is something else that we can talk about. Now, let's get this straightened out. Oops, clear it up. Let's get America only, United States, and then we can save that. I think there was one other thing. Yes, I see ISM, and then I thought there was I guess maybe it was the purchase index, yeah, something like that. Imports, exports. Oh, here is the S&P Global Services PMI final. It came out to 50.5 versus a 51 that they were expecting. And last month it was 52.3. So that I think that might have been one of those things that was starting to kind of crunch the market. When did this come out? 8, about basically 8 a.m. And yeah, looks like it's probably that ISM stuff. And that's how the market reacted. Oh yes. Okay, so let's see, ISM. Yeah. Okay. 50. That was funny, Lukewarm. I did notice that. I was like, interesting that the ISM was actually up because they're looking for it to go down because that means, the interest rates and stuff are working. So yeah, 54.5 versus 52.5. So it was a higher number than what was expected. And so yeah, it's cooking. It's hot. It's hotter, which means that the Fed is more likely to raise rates. Let's go take a look at the TNX. Yep, you can see the same thing right there. TNX popped right on that number. So yeah, I guess more things to show that the Fed could stay hawkish for longer because basically we're not getting that contraction in the economy, right? That's kind of what I was saying earlier. Is what about this recession? The recession may not happen right now; it might happen later. And right now, that's what a lot of the dollar and TNX are kind of saying because some of these economic data numbers are just not rolling over yet. They're still strong. Let's see. Let's look at pins. So top spin, you're saying it looks a lot like TPX. Kind of, kind of. This is a tough one, mostly because if you look, it's just hasn't really been going anywhere. So I'm not going to put too much emphasis on anything with Pinterest, mostly because I mean, look, it has really just kind of been choppy for the most part. So I'm just going to push back on that and just say, there may not be too much to work with. What I can see here on the weekly chart is basically there was your double top. You can see price got a little bit far from the moving average, so it did pull back. It found some support and it decided to bounce. It found the weekly 50. The weekly 8 was still over the 21. The Moxie indicator's above 0, and it did come into the monthly 10. That being said, it's still mostly going, it's kind of mushy. It's just kind of not doing much. Kind of dive in here. Yeah, it just got a little extended. In fact, if you look from yesterday, what it do? It went up to or just outside of that third ATR. It gapped off the 8 EMA on the hourly chart, and it was just kind of high. It's just right up here into some previous resistance, and so it just kind of came back. Yeah, so these are really small peanuts, really small. Something I'm not too worried or not too interested in trying to trade. This has been very messy. While it has been kind of in an uptrend, but it really hasn't done much. In fact, I've been seeing quite a few things like this that are just not doing much. Oh yeah, Kevin, I got with your screen names mixed up. I thought Lukewarm was talking about the ISM. So yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, some of the other stuff like Palantir. Look at this. While it looks like it should be holding up, it's just kind of not doing much. I'm interested in it. I want to see when this thing is finally going to pop and go, and maybe we can kind of get a starter position. But it also just hasn't really done much. There's been a lot of sideways action, while a lot of these names are just not really doing much. And let's see, ON. Now there you go. These names have pulled back pretty hard, got hit on earnings, and really at this point they're just trying to recover. They're not quite to a point where I'd be willing to buy it, mostly because if you look here, something that ON is probably going to be running into some resistance right there at the daily 21. Let's see if it pulls back, and maybe it'll go later, but not right now. Just so many of these names. Even let's see, Upstart. This one was kind of a conversation one. Yeah, look at that. You know, just been look how long it's been going sideways. Now, maybe eventually this will be a good thing, but right now it means that there's just no action. There's really not much to work with. Let's see, CFLT, kind of another one. There you go. Also, mostly trading sideways. It's been doing sideways for a few weeks at this point. Let's see what else we can get. Rivian did a little bit of a pop. I've been also expecting this pullback. So you guys remember yesterday in the Moxie room, we talked about this. kind of talked about it in detail actually. And I said, I'm not happy with this gap here between price and the hourly 50. We should expect a pullback. And well, what are we getting today? Well, we're getting a pullback. Now we're going to have to wait and see how far this pullback wants to go and if maybe this is going to be end up being bullish at some point. But for right now, that pullback is happening the way that I thought it would. I can look at Neo. This is another one we kind of discussed. Almost wanted to go in on this yesterday. It was looking pretty good, but I just thought, nah, the market seems like it's probably going to pull back a little bit, and Neo still not quite in an uptrend. Let's hold off a little bit, and I'm glad I did for now. But it too is just not really doing much. It pulled back very, very hard for about 3 weeks, and it's just not really doing anything in through there. Let's see, Rocket Lab is another one that we've kind of been eyeing. It looks very similar to Rivian. It did have, here's where everything pulled back for 3 weeks. It's a very long pullback for a lot of stocks. And we finally got a bit of a bounce, but this still isn't kind of where I would consider really good rip roaring moves or something that's going to be setting up the market for the future. So if that kind of helps show you guys that September might continue to be a bit of a weak month, but maybe it's going to help us set up for something because usually after September, it looks pretty good. So just kind of lay low, build your watch list, keep going through some names, see if there's some stuff that have opportunities. Probably keep your trades short duration while these things are happening because they're just not a ton of movement. And then, like we see even the big dogs are pulling back, but that's okay. We totally called this. We had a few great posts this morning. Basically saw that coming, and no big deal. So now we have to see where they go. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let it go there. Remember, if you're interested, you can come over here to profitpilot.com. Find out more information. I think we still have the Labor Day sale going. If not, our sales team, customer support is pretty good. Just talk to them and see what they can do to help you out. All right, guys. So you all take care. Those of you in the Moxie room, I will be back in the Moxie room and the options room in, I guess, half an hour, something like that. So we'll see you guys soon. Thanks again.